sharing their experience from tech leaders to tech leaders. This is CTO Talks.
Hello and welcome. My name is Marcin Jamłonowski and I have a tremendous pleasure to host today Hassan Lachgar, straight from France, the VP of Engineering of EcoVadis. And EcoVadis has recently started a process of replatforming its technology to microservices architecture, right? And even though the process hasn't finished yet, it's a multi-year process, and I know that you started some time ago, I thought it would be great to meet with you and share some of the pains or some experience you're experiencing on the way, because as I believe it's once you finish with something, probably some of the negative things just fade away and you tend to forget. So we would like to Hassan to share some of his feedback or lessons learned already from the process, even if it's still in progress. And Hassan, welcome very much. Could you tell us a few words for the context, for the listeners, because I believe it's quite important for the listeners to compare your situation probably to the situation they are in at the moment. A few words maybe about EcoVadis, what it is, and the technology behind it, and so on.
Sure. So thanks for having me, Marcin. It's a pleasure to be here today. So yes, I'm the VP of Engineering of EcoVadis. I've been with the company for almost 8 years now. It's my second time in the company, all right,
Okay.
for a total of maybe over a decade. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's been quite some time. So, EcoVadis today, if I describe it in a few words, it's the most trusted, let's say, business sustainability rating company. So, our goal is to deliver sustainability ratings for companies. And maybe I could give a very simple example for you to understand. Yeah.
When I first heard it, it's really sounded very vaguely. It was very difficult to imagine what this is.
I can imagine. So, let's maybe try to pick one very large company that you know. Anyone?
I don't know. Coca-Cola.
Perfect. That's actually a customer of EcoVadis. So Coca-Cola, they have, like every large companies, they have trading partners, suppliers, right? So for example, Coca-Cola will have to buy bottles from someone, anything, chairs, computers, whatever, right? It's their supply chain. And usually what they will do is that they will work with us and they will say, I would like to assess the sustainability risk in my supply chain. So our goal is to take their trading partners, their suppliers, and find them, contact them, rate them, and provide them a score, like we call it a scorecard, right? That will describe what is the sustainability risk for those companies. Usually, we are using 4 main criteria, which are environmental,
Okay.
Labor and human rights. So
Okay.
labor and human rights, and how do you treat your employees, for instance?
So I assume this is something to do. There were some things on the news, like where Foxconn employees, for instance, they committed suicides. I mean, this is probably an
extreme example.
Example,
But it could be like from very, very big problems like child labor to simple ones like what kind of practices like overtime and things like that. Yeah. So it's like environmental, labor and human rights, then ethics. Are you doing business in an ethical manner, right? Yeah. We can think about corruption, for instance.
Okay.
And the last one will be sustainable procurement. So those are the main criteria. There is way more to the methodology. That's basically what we do. So the good thing is that at the end of the day, the company will have like a better visibility on its supply chain, but that's not it, right? The next step will be to work together with their partners to improve. For instance, if you identify some areas of improvement, they will be able to use our platform to be able to improve. And next time they will be rated, hopefully they will have a better score, right?
Okay. Just maybe it's not important at this point, but do you actually validate? Because I assume that how do you verify whether how the situation looks on the ground? Because it's like, do you have consultants all over the world?
So we are doing ratings, so not really audits. Audits will be someone going on the ground and verifying. So we have a very advanced methodology. EcoVadis is 16 years old now. So for the past 16 years old, we have a department, evaluation department that is strengthening the methodology. And we have built a very extensive manner to find out if your answers, because we go through questions and they have to prove those points through supporting documentation, etc. And the methodology will, with very, very high confidence, prove if those answers are correct or not. Right?
Okay. And on the technological side, is it like a web application or?
Absolutely. So we are a SaaS company, so everything is done through our SaaS platform, right? So obviously, yes, there is a heavy usage of technology, but also, and we are very proud to say it, we keep humans in the loop, right? It's not like fully automated. We have humans that really thinks, especially about the methodology, what will be the best way, right, to rate those companies. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. All right. So for the context of our today's episode, how big is the company and the engineering team? Because that's usually something that impacts this kind of decisions.
So that's perfect timing because we celebrated the 1,500 employee. I think it was a couple of weeks ago.
So that's not a startup anymore.
It's to me, it is still a startup, right?
Okay.
I still see it
startup
as a
culture.
Yeah, startup
but not the
culture,
size.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's 1,500 employees now, which is amazing when you think about it. The first time I joined EcoVadis, we were 25.
Yes.
And now it's 1,500, so it's quite impressive. And for the engineering team, a tech team in general, we are, I would say, shy of 300.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not small either. All right. So also before we begin with the process of replatforming, how does your current architecture look like? Or do you have one monolithic system or many?
I mean, as you can imagine, when you have a system that is 15 years old, you have a little bit of everything, right? You can just say have this or that, right? We have multiple applications, internal systems, and client-facing applications. So I would say mainly our system is mainly monolithic, right? And we went already through like a first step, moving from a monolith to a modular monolith, right? To be able then to enter this new age of microservices, right? So today we would say it's most likely we'll call it modular monolith rather than monolith.
Okay. Okay. So before we dig into the technical details, if you could just share, because there's always a reason why certain changes are being implemented, right? So I think it's quite crucial to understand what led you to this decision to replatform to microservices.
It's a good question. It's a good question, and I think every company is asking themselves or itself the question at some point, even from the very beginning. And as I said, I remember even after 3-4 years at EcoVadis, we're already asking ourselves, should we refactor? And I think every system, after a year or two, you ask yourself, should I refactor? It starts to get a bit more complex, right? For ourselves, it's a matter of like following with the growth of the company, because at the end of the day, it's not about the tech. Yeah. And I think it's never about the tech. It's about how you can operate the tech and what can you do with the tech.
So I'm not sure if you watched our previous episode, about exactly the same thing. Yeah, it's more about the organizational changes rather than the technology.
Absolutely. So if you have like a system you're very happy with because it follows every trend, but at the end of the day you cannot operate it, and all teams are stuck, and there is no autonomy in deployment, etc., it's a problem, right? So the main reason, obviously, is to say how can we be better at what we do? How can we do more with less? I think technology should support that, right? You should be able to over time do more with less. But we know that unfortunately in IT, it's very hard to get economies of scale. Yeah. The more you grow, the harder it is to operate, right? So the goal was to say, let's rethink how our system should be built to bring more autonomy to the teams, which brings more creativity and eventually brings a better service to our customers, right? At the end of the day, that's what we want, right?
Okay, this is actually one important factor that microservices architecture promises, right? So this autonomy. Okay, so but this is like about the organizational. But were there any? Because at the end of the day, given like such a big investment to a sense, right? You need to build a business case to prove it's worth it. So were there, what arguments you used to convince like business or the board of directors to
it's always about the customer, always. So I think the main reason why you would like to do that and the main way to justify it is, could you have a better quality and a faster time to market, right? That's pretty simple. If you can deliver faster to your customer the value they're expecting in a better quality, then
this argument always works.
And that's the reality, right?
Because and that's what always like business and management expects, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So you briefly touched this topic, but it would be great to understand, because you can approach such a process in various ways. What strategy did you take to this kind of replatforming process? Strategy meaning, was it like have you planned for a big bang approach? You build microservices and then you switch, or more a staged approach?
Obviously, a staged approach. I would recommend everybody to go with a staged approach. Big bangs are never.
Yeah,
I don't recall any situation where it was a good idea. Maybe there is.
And I've never seen a successful
absolutely.
Big bang.
But for a huge system like ours, again, it really depends on the size. Our system is pretty large. So obviously, it's a staged approach. It is difficult to put in place the staged approach when the system is that big. And when you have to deal with a legacy and the monolith, right? But definitely that's the strategy, yes.
Yeah, it always reminds me of trying to replace a wheel in a driving car. And I assume you also, at the same time, while you replatform, you need to deliver some business features as well, right?
So as big as this program is, we cannot allow any interruption in our activity, right? Our customers need to still get value, even more than what they have today. So obviously we need to be very smart of how many people we allocate and how many resources we allocate to the program, and how many people can still contribute to delivering value to our customers, right?
Okay. So do you build microservices on a case by case cases, taking a certain feature or a module and then you take it out of the monolith, or? So
we thought about it. I think first of all, the most important was to define what is the target, because I think it will be a terrible idea to just start doing something without knowing where you're going, right? And the tricky part of it is to not focus again on tech only. Our target was to say, okay, what is the best architecture we can have that will benefit the organization? You know, the famous Conway's law and reverse Conway's law, right? So we started with that, match it with an organization, say, okay, in the future, we'd like the organization to operate this way. So also the architecture should be that way, right? That's the first thing. Once you have the target, you can think, okay, what can we start with? First of all, to prove the concept.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't work, it's better to not invest in more time to it. To learn how to do it, which is very tricky, because monolith to microservices, it sounds sexy, but you have to have a different set of skills in the team, a different set of infrastructure, of processes, of pipelines, etc. So that's quite a lot. So yes, obviously, then you pick first use cases. That's what we did. Pick like a use case. And what was interesting is to say, let's rank those use cases by few criteria. First of all, is it proving the technology? Is it proving the microservice concept, the new architecture? But also, is it bringing new value for the customer? Maybe try to start with a use case that could be a bit transformed to build a new value for the customer. And is it sexy, right?
But meaning what?
For example,
like a tech stack, or?
No, I mean, yes, as a whole. For example, you could say, I have a use case today. My customer have to go through this. Okay, I will replatform this area, but I will replatform it and bring new capabilities to the customer. Now it will be easier for the customer, because that's why the difference between refactoring and replatforming, we are not rebuilding the system as is.
Yeah.
And this is bringing, a shitload of more complexity to it, because we are rebuilding it and adding more capabilities at the same time.
Well, trying to maintain all the functionality.
Absolutely.
Sounds crazy. Yeah. Like a lot of moving elements.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and how about, because usually this kind of processes where you do something very much differently, meaning in this case, even I believe you're also refactoring your processes, business processes as well. Did it require any organizational changes as well? Like, were your previous structure and how you work, ways of working, already fit into the?
You mean from the tech team perspective, or from as a business?
I know that you can say from engineering the best, but it's always a wider topic. Yeah, like when people or companies were doing agile transformations, it was like a huge deal for the whole company, right?
Definitely. So we obviously had to redefine some kind of operating model, and we thought with the team, we obviously brought some people also to give us some advices, right? Because we have ideas, we may think we are smart, but it's better also to check with people that have seen other replatforming programs in other companies. Yes. So yes, we had to redefine some operating models. At the same time, we changed quite a lot. We brought new product managers. We created new roles, especially related to architecture.
Okay.
We brought the business teams within those groups. So we created, this kind of real cross-functional team. Yeah, we did not do it on ourselves. So it was a bit tricky, because at the beginning we had to create a new working group that had to find a new dynamic, a new way of communicating at the same time. But it has to happen, because this is the way we want to be working on the future. And if we don't start now to collaborate with everyone, even if we rebuild the tech, we will have a human problem next.
Exactly.
So, yes.
And how did the team react to this idea? Because it's always like,
I think it depends to who you ask this question, right?
Okay.
Now the team reacted is pretty excited. The team is really, really excited to go through this. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. They are very happy, but it's a challenge. So it's a lot of back and forth and trying something, and does it work? It doesn't work. Let's switch it. So maybe sometimes it starts to be frustrating, right? But at the end, like, everybody is extremely happy to participate to that. Yeah.
That's actually good to hear, and I'm not sure if you are able to share what the biggest value is seen by the rest of the team and what they are so happy about.
But they're happy because, as every tech employee is always happy when we modernize the tech stack, right? That's a fact. I mean, I've been an engineer for long enough to know that
that's true.
It's always cool to hear, we're going to jump into this microservice hype train or this or that and that, yes. But not only, I think they are very committed to do the best for EcoVadis, and they have been waiting for that for a long time, right? Because as you said, how do you justify this program? There are moments in a company that you can't justify it. Yeah. Maybe you just can't afford.
That's true. That's a huge investment.
It's a huge investment, absolutely. Yeah. So when the team is saying, we should do this and that, you're like, sorry guys, right now we can't. We have to, continue working that way because. But the day you came and say, guys, now we can do it. Hard work paid. Now we can afford to do it. Trust me, people are very, very happy.
Oh, that's great to hear. Okay, so what would be quite beneficial also for our listeners to know is whether you probably must have built some kind of business case and estimated the cost of this operation. Are you actually allowed to share what was the estimated probably effort for the process itself, not meaning the other building new functionalities and so on, but the replatforming process?
It's an important effort, obviously. I can say it's half the team is focusing on the replatforming effort, and the other half is. And
what is the estimated timeline? Like, how long do you?
A couple of years. Yeah. That's the initial timeline.
I know. That is the planned one.
That's the plan. Yes, that is the plan. Yes, it's a couple of years. Yes, we started early Jan last year, and we plan to continue until the end of the year. But obviously, in the meantime, we learned a lot of things that have impacted this timeline. Yeah.
Okay, so given we touched this topic a bit, what were the biggest challenges you already faced, or you are facing now, challenges and the issues that you haven't predicted at the very beginning, because it's impossible to predict everything?
A lot, literally a lot. And
so the biggest ones, one or two.
The biggest ones, synchronization. When you have 100 plus people, 150 people working on something like that, synchronization becomes extremely complex, literally very, very complex. And you end up in some kind of paradox because you want to move forward. You try to parallelize as much as you can, but you know that over parallelization sometimes creates more problem than benefit. Exactly. So, but the difficulty is to say, so if we don't manage to parallelize, what do we do? So you have to be very, very smart about what do you do, which team does what. So this, for sure, synchronization is one of the number one difficulty in this program. The second one will be, as every legacy system between quote, and I think this topic, of legacy, this word, I don't like it very much, to be completely honest. Because, come on, when you say, I don't know, my parents and my grandparents left me a legacy, usually it's very positive, right?
Yes.
I don't know why we use it like that in the software. It's bad. I don't think it's bad.
It's a very negative
connotation.
That's true.
But because it is how people call it, I will call it the same. So when you work in a legacy code base, you know that you don't have full test coverage. You don't understand what's going on everywhere. So the difficulty is that how do you navigate uncertainty? So you have teams that are breaking down stuff that they have no idea how it works. And the people that have built that, they are not here anymore. So adding to that we went through a super hyper growth. I think we hired 100 people at the same time.
Whoa.
So you take a year, you hire 100 engineers, you start breaking down stuff. There is this legacy, there is this very little knowledge about how it works. There is this hyper synchronization. Yes, it's complex.
Okay. And how are you dealing with those? Do you have a way already or still trying?
We are learning. It's still complex. It is still, and I think it will be complex until the end. There is no, I mean, I listened recently to a podcast where someone was saying that if it was not complex, if there was not a high risk of failure, it will not be important. So by nature, when we said we're going to start this very, very important project, by nature, we knew it's going to be complex, risky, and we will make mistakes. So I think we just have to embrace that. But the way I will say to reduce the risk on that is to make sure that everybody involved have very, very good understanding of what we are trying to do.
Okay, in a sense, like the target vision, right?
Absolutely. If the target vision is not clear for you, it will not be clear for the team. If it's not clear for the team, you are doomed.
Yeah, and you will have no buy-in from the team members, so But I believe it's not only about the target vision, but the key decision factors, that led you to it, because it's important to understand.
Absolutely.
Okay, and for the synchronization, I think it's quite an interesting topic generally, even not with this kind of process. How do you deal with that? Do you have some external management layer, or do you let teams to synchronize themselves? Or
so at the very beginning, obviously, we had to start with what we had. But we had also in mind to bring another layer of roles that we never had, which is the program management. So we hired a program manager, a very, very senior one. And we also created a new role, not a new position, but a new role of the delivery manager. So people that are working together as a group with the program manager that takes care of a very specific vertical of the replatforming and make sure they are aligned, they synchronize the effort, and they make sure that every team is doing what they are supposed to do at the right moment, right? If you don't bring that, you're doomed.
It's chaos.
You're literally doomed. And I think that on this kind of program, you need to structurizing it is very, very important. Everybody can say, yeah, we're agile. Come on.
But are you using some kind of, scaled agile methodologies like SAFe?
Not really.
Okay, because I'm not sure if you know, but in SAFe you have these strings where you connect at each PI planning. So
but actually we do things like that. We have PI plannings and reviews, etc. So we are not doing SAFe. Yeah, exactly. Usually I leave quite a lot of freedom for the people to organize themselves as long as they understand the target and they go in the direction of the target, right? So then the best is to let the team figure out how to do things. But in terms of program management, you have to have people that are senior and they know what they're doing.
Yeah. And coordinate overall.
Absolutely.
I fully agree. All right. So, assuming that some of our listeners are going through the similar decision-making process nowadays, what would you recommend them to look at or consider before they begin? Yeah, because it's something that may be quite crucial.
It's a good question, Marcin. So, first of all, if they can do it, that's already good news, right? Because most of the companies, they wish they could, but they can't. So it's already good news, right? Yeah.
There are probably different various obstacles like lack of budget and
absolutely
stuff like that.
Absolutely. So that's the first one. And I will say, before you start, get your vision straight. You absolutely know where you're going. Make sure you have the right resources and the right skills. If you're going to go, I don't know, to Microservices or whatever, do you have people that have seen that? Because trust me, having read articles online is not enough. Yeah. Right? People will say, yeah, I know how to do this. I have read this and watched this YouTube video. It has absolutely nothing to do with that.
That's true. Distributed systems are complex on its own.
Absolutely. So bring the right people on board. Make sure you have a good governance on this project management and technical project manager, etc. People that will be able to organize it in a very precise way. Then I will say, if you have the chance and the luxury to be able to do some kind of proactive analysis, do it. Because I think maybe the mistake we made is that we did some analysis at the beginning, which was probably not enough. I think if we could have spent a bit more time digging more into how the system works, but preparing the architecture vision, the ADRs, the principles we're going to follow, etc. This we did it along the way at the beginning of the program, but I think it's better to come up with, this is what we want to build, how we want to build it. Mm-hmm. So it creates alignment from the beginning. Because when you build, I don't know, we had to set up all the new architectural guidelines and principles. You do it along the way, it takes time, first of all. and it takes time to people to understand them, embrace them, etc. So you will lose time to go back and forth, etc. If you can set this up before, I think you will be doing less back and forth and going back to the team and reviewing what they have done. Say, guys, you haven't really understood the new principles we are trying to achieve here. Please fix that and fix this, right? So.
Okay, so many thanks for that. I have one last question based on what you just said. I was wondering, given you set up certain principles on how you refactor or how you approach the replatforming, and assuming you have no budget for a big replatforming process that you can dedicate or allocate resources, do you think it's possible to do such a process while doing like BAU, meaning that you say that you have like 10% of capacity on doing small refactorings while you do new features or bug fixing?
Absolutely. I mean, this is the best case scenario, is that you are lucky enough that, I mean, come on. Every bigger company has started as a small company. Every small company was a startup, was struggling with money, was struggling with customers. We need to go back in the reality of the time, right? It's easy to say, yeah, we should have done that, like, you know, this continuous refactoring. Yeah. But man, when you are a startup and struggling with money and survival, trust me, you will not think about it. Even if you want, you will not. So it really depends on your context. If you are lucky enough to have enough funding to do it from the beginning, please do it.
Yes.
And I will even say, it's not about the tiny details. It's about like really the architecture, like the high level. How do you split your system? I like to say that the most important is to have the right boxes, because if ever there is a problem with the box, the madness is isolated, right? Yeah. If you can afford to build like the right architecture from the beginning, split the domains in the right way, man, you are making your life way better for the future. But again, the context is important. I think most of the small companies, they're struggling with money, struggling with funding, especially right now, right?
But assuming it's not a small company, it's a company like EcoVadis, given you have time, yeah, because I'm guessing this kind of process would take more than a couple of years. But do you think it would be possible in your case to this kind of continuous improvement, continuous refactoring?
I mean, that's what we want to do post-replatforming. We have to do it because we have to do it, right? And we cannot change the past. But once we will be done, it's absolutely necessary to give the time to teams to keep their system at the highest quality possible along the way. You don't want to do another replatforming in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? So yes, I agree with you. It is possible, but you need to have like a good base, right? So it's a hard question it's a very hard question.
So you're building the base now.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And if ever, I mean, let's be honest, if ever we did all of this and we have a very good base, and in 3 or 4 years from now, we end up saying, whew, we messed up so much again, we need to ask ourselves some question. What are we doing here? Right?
If it's the right job, or
absolutely.
Okay, so maybe last one, because for EcoVadis it's crucial to keep the system up and running as it was while you're doing this process. How do you make sure you keep the functionalities working the same, or keeping the feature set? Do you have like a extensive test end-to-end test cases, or?
So we are lucky to have invested early on into a test automation team that has been building a framework for the team. The feature seems to be using it, right? As every company, we cannot say we have like 100% coverage, right? We have enough, but in a program like this one, data is the key. Because you can mess up functionality. Let's imagine a feature was working that way and suddenly it crashes and there is a bug, or it's slower or whatever. Okay, a customer will be unhappy. You fix it, you're good. But if you mess up the data, you will be in a very, very bad situation, right? Because the data is everything, and if you lost it, you lost it. And
so how do you secure that? Apart from old school backups, yeah? Because
that will not be enough. I think there is one scenario, for example, that is the most scary of all, is to say, not for EcoVadis in general, is to say you have some data leaks, some data desynchronization along the way. It's a small one, it's a silent one. You think your system is okay, it keeps getting worse and worse and worse, and suddenly after a month or two, because it was so silent and so slow, suddenly the system becomes corrupted. One day. Then you look what happened. Now you have no way to find out what happened. The data got desynchronized along the way. Your only solution will be, we need to roll back the whole business by 1 month. We have no. This would be the worst for any company. So data is extremely important. Make sure your data migration is done in the right way, is tested in the right way, and if the feature crashes, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal if it's just like a front-end issue, right? Of like a button not working.
And one idea that comes to my mind too, would you like keep the old functionality and the new one and keep them both?
Absolutely, we keep them both, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
You keep them both running, you create a new system, you do like a sync back of the two systems to make sure the data is still consistent, you can compare it. And once you're confident enough, you can move, all the traffic to the new system and get rid of the old one.
Toggle switches in case something goes wrong.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So it's all about the data, Marcin. It's really all about the data. All about the data.
Okay. That's the conclusion for today's episode. Hassan, many thanks for coming over all the way from France and coming to the studio. I hope it was quite beneficial to our listeners as well. And I hope we meet again and talk about once you finish the process. So it's going to be even more interesting.
Absolutely. We'll celebrate together.
Hopefully.
Thank you, Marcin.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sharing their experience from tech leaders to tech leaders. This is CTO Talks.